here and what he is doing to help save a generation. Lindsay W. Huddleston II is the definition of a Renaissance man. And a Renaissance man is a cultured man who is knowledgeable, educated, or proficient in a wide range of fields. And that's definitely Mr. Huddleston. And he provides consulting and motivational speaking for a profit and also non-profit organizations throughout the United States. The emphasis is philanthropy, fundraising for government relationships, mentoring, workforce development, along with also pro-athlete foundations. Initially, he wrote a book called Unlikely Saviors, and I recommend that you all get a copy. Wonderful copy. This is one of my #1 books. And I love everything about it. It really speaks about being a mentor in a high school. It really shows me of what we're dealing with athletes that come in our classroom that are unlikely saviors. But they are saviors. That's why they should read the book. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Lindsay Huddleston. Please stand to your feet and help me welcome Lindsay to the stage.
In October last year, my family buried my grandmother, and we announced that that was our preparation. Because on Monday, I buried my oldest and only brother, Sean. He had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Brother Henry, he was only 40 years old. He was happily married with 2 children and 2 adopted children. And Wednesday, I went to the doctor, and they told me I had strep throat. Don't worry, I'm taking my antibiotics. I'm not going to take it. You want to keep your distance, that's fine. But never for a moment did I think that I would not speak tonight. I knew that if my family could be victorious over death, anything else was child's play. God is still on the throne. Someone told me today, nobody's knocking on the door. So with that, I say good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Friends, thank you very much for that introduction. You are appropriately named heir apparent. You represent the future. We all should be proud of that. Darrell Carter, my mentor, you represent the future. We're all very proud of you and what the future holds. To Brother Johnson, to all the board members, and everyone present tonight, good evening. Good evening. I'm deeply honored and moved to be your keynote speaker tonight here at your 5th annual fundraiser. I was equally honored to be the keynote speaker for the Salute to Excellence last year. Whenever I get an opportunity for a return speaking performance, I think of 2 things. Either I did a really, really good job and they wanted me to come back, or you ask a lot of people and a lot of people said no. So I'm hoping it was that I did a good job. So I have been very fortunate since I stood before you last. I've been able to successfully transition from corporate America. As Prince was reading, I'm able to bring value to organizations on a national scale through my consulting company with clients like Real Life 101, a national nonprofit that provides scholarships, laptops, and mentors to African American males. My book, Unlikely Saviors, Realizing the Positive Impact Athletes Can Have on Society Through Philanthropy, has been published as stated, and hopefully you'll see fit to find a signed copy tonight. I've been going throughout the country sharing this message along with consulting professional athletes and their foundations, and also advising amateur athletes about how they can use social media and sports to promote philanthropy, and we'll touch more on that in a moment. The government relations form of my consulting company is growing, and my presence tonight gives credence to the fact that as a motivational speaker, I have a message that people want to hear. And if that's not enough, the Lord has seen it fit to bless my wife and I, Rachel, with our first child due very soon. So on June 4th, 2012, as the founder and CEO of the Huddleston Consulting Group, I'll be relinquishing all my power to my 2 new bosses, my wife, Rachel Huddleston, and my daughter, Madeline. These are all wonderful things, and you can imagine how excited and proud I am and what my life has been and what my future holds. But now here lies a challenge, Brother Kelly. I need to come down off this high and all those great accolades to provide a message that is worthy of Black Men Incorporated in their 20 years of service to this community. As in my introduction and the words I've shared, I've been blessed to have many accomplishments. So what does that mean? I mean, I need to bring it, right? I need to come with me. This is a big ticket event and I need a big ticket message. Well, for any of you who've been in my shoes and stood on the other side of the microphone, you know this can go one of two ways. It can go really, really good, or go really, really bad, right? So, of course, I want it to go well and I want to exceed the expectations. So I'm always reminded of the story that I want to share with you right now. When I'm sitting here excited about sharing the message, and when Brother Kelly is saying great things about me, I think of this story in particular. It was about a young minister who was going to go on to preach. It was his Sunday to preach. He was very full of ambition. He walked into the pulpit with his chest poked out, Brother Johnson. He was feeling good. He knew they were going to love him. He knew he was going to bring a message they wanted to hear. And he got started on his message. He bombed. I mean, he didn't do bad. As some would say, it was a sin and a shame. He did a terrible, terrible job. So as he walked out, as he left the pulpit, dejected and defeated, one of the mothers of the church, with her wisdom, had something to say. And this is what I think about. She said, if he would have came out like you went in, he could have went in like you came out. Point being is, if you humble yourself going forward, you can get all the praise and the accolades you need. So, I'm hoping that with the introduction that I got and all that good stuff, I can go out like I came in. So going forward this evening, we've talked about enough things that can make you smile and laugh, but as the pendulum of life swings back and forth, let's talk about some other things that can make you sad or even make you cry. As far back as 1619, when our ancestors were arriving to the American colonies as slaves, there was always a monumental, against all odds challenge for us to face, yet we were victorious. We jump into our time machines and we arrive to the 1960s, where the world saw our fight for social justice during the civil rights movement. Again, there was a monumental, against all odds challenge for us to overcome, and we were victorious. You see, whether it was in the 1970s, where our African brother Fela Kuti, who was the namesake of the Broadway smash Fela, was an activist that used his music to fight the oppression of his war-torn nation of Nigeria, again, there was always a monumental, against all odds challenge for us to overcome. Or whether it's the oppressive Assad regime in Syria, murdering its own citizens, innocent individuals, there's always a monumental, against all odds challenge for us to overcome. So let us come back across the North Atlantic Ocean, from the Middle East to good old East Lansing. Let's come home and talk about the monumental, against all odds challenges that black men in corporate and Greater Lansing have been combating over the last 20 years. I've said this and I'll say it again, 1 in 3 African American men in prison. Only 41% of African American males graduated from high school. And only 31% of African American males graduated from high school from my beloved city of Detroit. And you can check the Schott Foundation and other government statistics to compare those notes. So along with these educational disparities, there's a terrible cycle of violence that's taking hold. The outlook for our future young men and women is very bleak. It's a terrible time for many of them, a terrible time indeed. And if we took this microphone and passed it around the room, we could fill the evening talking about the atrocities and the terrible things that we've witnessed and we've seen. But before we start going down that road, I have to say, stop. I apologize, but I just must say we have to abruptly end the miserable and defeated train of thought that we can easily have about the future of our young people. Let me share with you a quote. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their households. Now you may think that quote may have come from Newsweek, Ebony magazine, but that was from Socrates, 469 BC. You see, as the saying goes, history repeats itself. The only thing new about the challenges that we face is that these are our challenges and not someone else we read about. All right. So have no fear, for we're all destined to face new challenges. You see, with all due respect to everyone here tonight, and your commitments to serve your community for 20 plus years, there's a phrase I want to address. That phrase is, well, back in my day. That term is used to reference the stark differences in behavior and the actions of one generation compared to another. Well, back in my day also refers to the disconnect of social graces and protocol from one generation to another. But with all due respect, this ain't your day. It's a new day where technology has been substituted for social graces. Instead of a face-to-face introduction, one sends a friend request on Facebook. Instead of a personal note of thanks, one sends a text. Instead of making a protest sign and marching on the Capitol, one sends a tweet on Twitter to profess their concerns. Now, as a 35-year-old husband and father-to-be, best believe I am more inclined to the back of my day principles as opposed to the new generation coming up. I realize that although texting and social media represent the evolution of technology, they also run the risk of stunting the growth of interpersonal social skills for an entire generation. But before many of you repeatedly proclaim to the world that you will never give in to social media, that you will refuse to accept that form of communication from a young person, let me share with you this. According to a very new study by the Pew Internet and American Life Project, teens are now sending about 60 text messages a day from their phones, a 20% increase since 2009. And while the number using their cell phones to talk has fallen, 75% of all teens use text messaging, which is a dominant form of communication for their age group. And one other group, among others, including their parents. Older teens are now the most enthusiastic texters, sending twice as many as teen boys. But boys of all ages are texting more, and get this. African American teens have had the largest recent increase in using texting, now sending a median 80 text messages a day. Now, let me ask you this. Have you texted somebody lately? Yeah. Have you friended somebody on Facebook? Have you tweeted on Twitter? And if you have, great. And if you haven't, you need to. Let us be reminded of the model that guides this powerful organization. We must not expect others to do for us those things we can and should do for ourselves. Many of you, Brother Cleveland, are veterans of war, foreign and domestic. Declared and undeclared, a war against the enemy with guns and bullets, or an enemy with oppressive policies and practices. Be it Vietnam or Jim Crow, each generation has a war to fight. And this new one will be rooted in the cyber world. You may say, but Lindsay, this generation is crazy. But I must remind you that children of God cannot be afraid. Despite the headlines, the parent cannot fear the child, and the older brother or sister cannot fear their younger siblings. We have to connect with these young people, and we have to start in their cyber world, because they don't feel welcome in ours. You can wait on them to come. You can wait on them all you want, but they ain't coming. You must realize that most of us all knew a world without email, without Facebook, without texting, without Twitter. However, this generation, think about it, it's the only world they know. Any form of communication that's not rooted in social media is going to be foreign to them. I'm not saying to forget about the importance of developing interpersonal skills, but you got to get the fish on the hook before you reel it in. You have to get on their level before you can bring them to yours. And this challenge is nothing new from the challenge you faced when you marched in the 60s, wore an afro in the 70s, did the moonwalk in the 80s, cheered Mandela was released in the 90s, and elected Barack Obama in the 2000s. Now, in order to save the most precious resource among us, which is the next generation, you need to tweet a team, be a friend of them on Facebook, talk to a text. And why do you need to do this? Well, I called my close friend in Chicago after those infamous 41 murders in 50 hours some time ago. He works with young people through music and education. I asked him, I said, what can we do to stave off this violence? And this is what he told me. You have to acknowledge the young people. You have to acknowledge that they're there. But as I said in some recent remarks before, this seemed like a very simple antidote to a very complex illness, but it's the only way you're going to begin to connect with a generation that seems to be unplugged to the values and morals that we all know so well. And remember also, we were not put on this earth just to complain and reminisce on the past, but being proactive to help determine the future for their own destiny. For all of us have a role to play. It doesn't just have to be in the form of social media. One of the best things you can do and to positively impact the next generation is to say what you mean and mean what you say. I think that's worth repeating. One of the best things you can do as an adult is to say what you mean and mean what you say. You know why? Because they're always looking and judge. You need to walk the walk and talk the talk, because the youth are always looking for a reason to discredit you. And why shouldn't they? They've been let down by so many. And the emotion of hope and compassion has been robbed from our young people based on a society that has preyed upon them so they become predators. So tonight, as we recognize Black Men Incorporated and the 20 years of service, let us look forward to the next 20 years, where even if technology may rule the day, we'll still make an effort and a commitment to capture the hearts and the minds of our young people. Just think, your parents don't even understand you. They don't understand your music, they don't understand your style, but they refuse to stop loving you. They refuse to stop praying for you, and they refuse to stop acknowledging you. So, don't be so fast to judge the youth. After all, they didn't invent the phone that they're texting on, nor the computer that they seem so permanently attached to. And like everyone else, they're just consumers of what's fresh and new. So come out of that comfort zone, and what better way to connect with the next generation but by reaching out to a young person and asking them, hey, teach me some of that tech stuff. Now they may laugh, but I guarantee you, your persistence to meet them where they are will pay off. Your genuine persistence. And after all, the drug addict's recovery didn't start in the rehab clinic. The mentally ill was not already checked in at the hospital, and the sinner does not start by knocking on the pastor's door for their road to salvation. Someone who cared more than was expected, someone who would not give up on them, helped show them the way. Good Christian people need to lead by example. You need to draw those in who are in need. So as I conclude, Black Men Incorporated Greater Lansing, I salute you as soldiers in the struggle for your unwavering commitment to respond to the call of action by President Barack Obama when he asked African American men to give back to their communities. Black Men Incorporated Greater Lansing, I commend you on your steadfast commitment to serve your community now and in the future. And Black Men Incorporated Greater Lansing, I congratulate you in advance for being victorious despite your monumental, against all odds challenges you have faced. So thank you for having me this evening, and I can't wait for the next 20 years. Thank you very much.